I am definitely not the hero of this talk, but if I do my job properly, you will be. You'll be the hero that goes on a journey today and discovers a gift that could change your world. First, let me tell you a story that will give you context for everything I'm about to share with you. I was 9 years old, and I was horror-stricken as I watched my two older brothers, Perry and Mark, in a vicious fight. They were strangling each other on the floor. My 9-year-old brain actually believed that I was about to lose one or maybe both of my brothers. When it was all done, they vowed that they would never speak to each other again. And they didn't. For several years. So here's how it went down in my house. The phone would ring, and Perry would answer it, discover that it was for Mark. He would say to me, "Go tell your brother Paul wants to talk to him." I was drawn into the space between for years. Fast forward, my brother Mark got into trouble. My dad kicked him out of the house, held the hard line. Even though my mother's heart was breaking, she would secretly bake cinnamon buns and come to me and say, "Would you take these to your brother and tell him that I love him?" I was drawn into the space between. That was 50 years ago. And I have lived in and have worked in the space between ever since. And what I want to do today is to help you understand the power of what can happen when we step into that space. In order to do that, I'm going to share a true and remarkable story with you about Paula and her manager, Ziad, in which they go on a journey from depleted brains to very energized brains. So I'd like you to meet Paula. Paula started her job, like most of us do, wanting to be a high performer. She was highly engaged, wanted to contribute to the organization, but what happened in her company was there was a reorg, and leaders took their eye off the ball, leaving Paula without the support, the guidance, the coaching that she so desperately needed. And although Paula had started out engaged, she became exhausted. Although she had started out dedicated, her brain became depleted. And here's what we are seeing across North America. Massive amounts of employees, managers, and leaders who are engaged but exhausted. They're dedicated but depleted. So it's very difficult to become our best selves when our brain is depleted. But why is that? Let's take a moment and peek inside this 3-pound blob of tofu that nestles into your cranium and understand why that is. This brain of ours, it only comprises 2% of our body weight. But how much energy does it burn every day? It is metabolically expensive. It burns 20% of our energy reserves every single day, far more than any other organ in our body. Heart, lungs, liver, they're all important, but they can't come close to the energy draw that the brain does. So what happens if you are engaged but exhausted? If you are dedicated but depleted, you will lose access to one very important thing. And the first thing you lose access to is your executive function. So all the autonomic functions of the brain that control your immune system, your digestive system, your fight and flight mechanism, they keep running, but the first thing you lose access to is the executive function, because the body is very judicious in its use of fuel. So the executive function, what is it? Well, let's take a look here. With an energized brain, you can focus your attention. You can regulate your emotions. You can connect the dots in surprising ways. You can anticipate the downstream implications of any decision or behavior. And you can make really smart decisions. But when your brain becomes depleted and you lose access to the executive function, you get easily distracted. You can react very impulsively. You lose the thread. You fail to see the downstream implications, and you make really unwise decisions. This is not a bad person. This is just a person with a depleted brain. So this is where Ziad enters the story. In the reorg, he became Paula's new manager. And he sat down with her. And after hearing a few things from other leaders and other managers in which they said, when she's on her game, Paula is amazing. She's bright and she can be highly productive. But she's begun to struggle with stress and sickness and absenteeism. And in fact, she became absent so often that leaders had seriously considered freeing up her future.